Hello everyone, this is Aaron Johnson with the Johnson iRacing team. I'm coming to you today from Lanier National Speedway in Georgia. Lanier National is the track for this week, week 6, season 1 of the 2021 iRacing season. Lanier National is a 3/8 mile asphalt track. It's relatively low banked, about 9 degrees. And one of the things that iRacing stated in their update for the 2021 season that they released back in December is that they'd resurfaced Lanier National Speedway. And I think that for me and for the setup that I'd been running at Lanier and for the approach that I take at Lanier, it's made things a little more challenging. I've developed a little bit of a push coming out of turn number 4 at Lanier, and so I've been trying to address that. But I wanted to go ahead and get this video out that shows the line that I run at Lanier. That way you guys can kind of see that line, see where I think the speed is, and then as I am able to maybe update my setup a little bit, I can run some faster lap times, maybe put out a second video that shows some of those changes. We're going to start out this time with the driving line off, mostly because I think at Lanier the marks are pretty good, and the track, the groove in the track is highlighted pretty well without the driving line. And then I will show you the driving line later on in the video. So I wanted to start out by walking you through kind of in slow motion a lap here at Lanier. My first turn-in point is actually the steps. It's the entryway from the flag stand. This is the flag stand here. It's the steps. I start to turn in just as my car gets to and slightly past the steps. Let's crawl back in here and hit play, and then we'll back that up just a little bit. So there's the steps. You can see that the wheel is turned a little bit. I actually start turning the wheel just as I'm getting to the steps. I turn in, and then my goal, you can see the groove right here. My goal is going to be to hit this mark, right? I want that mark to be going just under the left side of my hood. That's kind of where I go. So it's the lane divider mark that's on the inside of the hood. I'm going to try to keep the car on that lane divider mark through here, and then turn down until I get 2 wheels on the yellow line. So I'm going to stay right down here. I'm going to try to get 2 wheels on the yellow line. You can see that I'm pretty close. We'll get into the chase camera. You'll be able to see this with the chase camera. I'm actually a little bit under the yellow line, and at Lanier you can get away with that because the transition from the banking to the apron is not as abrupt. So at USA International or at Southern National Motorsports Park, you go from fairly steep banking to the flat transition onto the apron pretty quickly, and that tends to upset the car. It unloads the springs a little bit and tends to loosen you up. At Lanier, you can get away with getting 2 wheels below the yellow line. Hop back in the cockpit. I'll start to roll back into the throttle once I feel the car stabilize. And what I'm feeling for is I'm trying to feel for a stable feedback from my force feedback mechanism on my steering wheel. If that feedback isn't stable, the car's really not stabilized yet. Once that car starts to stabilize, that feedback will stabilize and I can roll back into the throttle. And it's key here at Lanier, as it is in so many other tracks, to roll into the throttle. Don't use the throttle like an on-off switch. If you do, it tends to eat up tires. So we're going to come out of turn number 2 on the throttle hard up against the wall. My second turn-in mark is in the Lanier Super 6 advertisement. I'm looking for the A, and when I can see that the A has a checkered flag inside the A itself, that's when I know I need to be ready to turn. And as the A with the checkered flag gets to my A pillar, that's the A pillars right here, as it gets to the A pillar, I'm going to be turning in. So there it is to the A pillar. You can see the steering wheel starts to turn. Same thing. I'm going to shoot for the this lane divider mark. I'm going to try to have it go over the inside of the left side of my hood. I'm going to be just on the inside of the dark groove that iRacing has placed here to represent the rubber that the cars are laying down. I'm going to come in across it. I'm also going to try to get this one to come inside my left side A pillar, and then I'm going to roll the car right down onto the apron, try to get 2 wheels against the yellow line. And we can see from the chase cam I'm right on the yellow line. That's what I want to try to do. The problem here is that I started to pick up the throttle because things stabilized, and you can see that as soon as I did, the car started to push up the racetrack. And so if we watch that, we'll see the car pushing up the racetrack. You can see it slide up here. And so I push up pretty hard out of the groove. This groove is the dark area. And then the car snaps loose. And you can see I have to steer back to correct that loose feeling. That's what we call a snap push, or what I've always called a snap push back when we were building stock cars in the 90s. If a car was tight coming out of the turn, it would push, 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 and you'd oversteer. You'd turn the steering wheel harder. You'd put more wheel into the car to try to accommodate that push. Problem is that just keeps heating the tires up and makes the push worse and worse. But if the front wheels started to catch, if they did catch traction, they'd catch quickly, and then that would cause the rear of the car to break loose. So it would feel like the car was pushing, and then it would snap loose, and you'd think you had a loose condition. What you really have is a car that's tight, and when the front wheels finally grip, the grip is so sudden and the wheels are turned so sharply that you're snapping the car loose. Right, out of the corner, and then you want to be right back up against the wall to start the next lap. So we can see how close we're going to try to get to the wall here also from the chase camera. There are some guys out there that can run right up against the yellow line. I'm an old man with bad eyes, so I tend to try to give myself a little more room here. But ideally, you want to be as close to you can get as this yellow line so that you get the best entry angle into turn 1 and then on the back straightaway into turn 3. So let's watch a video at speed now. We're going to crawl back into the cockpit. This is my turn marker, so I should be starting my turn at any moment. I imagine when I hit the play button here, you'll see that I'm turning the wheel. There's the turn in, roll down onto that yellow line, then roll into the throttle. A little bit loose still. Same thing, turn down in, roll into the throttle. You can see the push out of 4 is pretty bad. So that's something we're going to have to work on in the setup shop. The lap here is pretty quick, 14.7 seconds, 14.8 seconds would be a pretty quick lap. A very quick lap would be in the 14.6s. And we'll come out of 4 here. The push not quite so bad that time. Right, let's stop the car. I'm going to turn the driving line on and to help you kind of see where I'm getting on and off the throttle. So we're getting ready to start another lap. Again, this is going to be the turn-in point. I'm going to aim for that mark. So the fast groove is pretty close to the driving line. You tend to be a little outside of the driving line going into turn 1, and you're going to kind of cross over the driving line and be a little bit under that preferred driving line as you go through 1 and 2. The key is, where do you get off the throttle? Now, I tend to drive in pretty deep. I'm a driver that drives in pretty deep. And then that means that I'm going to get onto the throttle a little later than some drivers. You can think of a corner on an asphalt track as being like a teeter-totter. If you put more weight on one end, you put less weight on the other, and what you're really looking for is a balance. So if I drive in really hard, I'm going to end up coming out maybe not quite as quickly. If I drive in easy, that's going to allow me to get to the throttle quicker, and I'm going to come out. Faster. Oval track racing then is really an exercise in maximizing your average speed through the corners. And sometimes that means, depending on your setup, you're going to drive in a little harder and you're going to be able to roll into the throttle, and you may come out of the corner not quite as early as some other drivers, but your overall corner may be faster. It may be that at a other track or with a different setup, you actually get into the corner a little easier. You don't drive in as deep, but you roll into the throttle sooner. So you're trying to maximize your efficiency through the corner, maximize your corner speed. So let's walk through this again in slow motion. I'm going to turn in, and you're going to see me start to roll off the throttle just as my car crosses the outside lane divider line. I get off the throttle just as I cross that lane divider line. You're going to see me getting off the throttle right now. And by the time I get to the second lane divider line, I'm just coasting the car. I used 0 brake at Lanier National, so you see no brake in my brake pedal. I'm going to let the car roll right down onto the apex, and when I feel the forced feedback in my wheel stabilize, I'm going to roll into the throttle. And really, you do want to roll in. If you're using that throttle like a light switch, I can't say this enough, if you're going from being off the throttle to being floored immediately, it's going to eat up your tires. You want to roll back in, and then once the car is stable, you want to get on the throttle and you want to stay on it. If you have to let off the throttle because you're pushing up toward the wall or because the car is a little loose because you got on too quick, that's actually going to slow you down. Once you are in a position where you can be at full throttle, you want to be able to stay at full throttle. It's going to be quicker, even if you have to wait a little longer to get on the throttle, than it is to get on the throttle too early and have to let off. So back on the throttle, right up against the wall. Watch for my mark. This is my mark right here to turn in, and just as that mark gets to my A-pillar, I'm going to turn in. And you can see I'm turning in right now just as it's getting to the A-pillar. We're going to cross this outside line, and the throttle point is about the same. I let off the throttle just as I get to this line and start to cross it. You can see I'm letting off the throttle now. By the time I get to this second lane marker line, I'm completely off the throttle. I'll let the car roll in through the center of 3 and 4, and then as the car stabilizes, roll back into the throttle, and then up against the wall. So that last lap was a 14.777. This one's a 14.794. If you've been watching it all, if you're able to do so, go to the stats page, or sorry, go to the results page and click on one of the feature races from the top split, and you can get a feel for what the fast laps are and what the average lap speeds are. If you can run mid 14.7s for your fast lap speed, you're going to be competitive in the top split. If you could run low 14.7s, you're going to be very competitive. I've seen a couple of guys, Emmanuel Frimpong, John Tuckness, a couple of other drivers that have run down into the 14.6s, but I think in most races, if you're low to mid 14.7s, you're going to be pretty competitive. So I'm going to back this up, and we're going to watch a full lap now with the driving line on. Remember, the turn-in point for me is as the stairway entry comes to the front of my car, I start my turn-in, and then on the back straightaway, I'm looking for that A, off the throttle, just as you cross this outside lane marker, these outside lane stripes. So let's watch. Off the throttle. Let the car roll into the throttle. That's a pretty good turn up against the wall. Again, let the car roll a little loose getting in that time, a little tight coming out, loose, snaps loose on me. 767, you take that. That's a quick lap. But you can see the car's a little loose out of 2, and part of that's the adjustment I'm making to try to deal with this push coming out of 4. That lap, I let off the throttle just a little earlier. I feel like I ran a 7.65. That's a pretty quick lap. Would really like to be running 740s. Got a little loose coming out of 2. Roll into the throttle. There's the push again, and then there's the snap loose as you come out. So we've got a little work to do on the setup for Lanier, especially to deal with this push coming out of 4. But I think overall, running down into the 14.7s is going to make you it's going to make you competitive at Lanier National. Maybe a few tips and suggestions. At Lanier, my experience has been with this setup and with the previous build that you still want the left front spring to be the stiffest spring. I think my left front is it's a 275, and that's probably not stiff enough. I may want to stiffen it up to 300. I think part of my problem with this push coming out of 4 is that I'm too soft in the front, and so I may need to stiffen the front springs up just a little bit. So I think you want the left front to be your stiffest spring. I think you want the rears to be even. My experience at Lanier has been that when your rear spring rates are the same, your setup tends to age better, so that instead of really seeing a rapid fall off on lap 15 or 16, you maybe don't see that drop off until 19 or 20 or 21. What else? Remember that these cars like low tire pressures. At Lanier, I run 10 on the left side and 13 on the right. I know a couple of drivers that can run down into maybe 12 on the right front. That tends to, because of my style, that tends to make the push a little worse. But they like these lower tire pressures. So 10 or 11 on the left, 13 or 14, probably 14 at the highest on the right. What else? Throttle management is absolutely crucial at Lanier. The very best drivers, if you get a chance to watch them, watch Matt Coker, watch Adam Hancock, watch Mario Cook, watch John Tuckness, watch Patrick Day. If you see these guys racing, crawl into the cockpit with them and watch how they manage the throttle. You can't really see their throttle position, but you can hear when they're rolling back in, and the throttle management is going to be crucial. Those are going to be the things that I think are going to help you at Lanier. I hope that this video helps you go fast. I love to race with the guys that are quick, and I love to race with the guys that are stable. It's a whole lot more fun to race with somebody when you know you can go side by side with them, and they're going to be quick and stable, and that's what makes racing a lot of fun. So I hope this video helps you out. I hope you're able to go fast. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free. Jump on Facebook. We're at the Johnson iRacing team. Send us a message. You can also send us a message on any of the YouTube videos, or you can send me a message through the iRacing interface. For the Johnson iRacing team on the Johnson iRacing Network, this is Aaron Johnson saying, go fast, turn left, have fun.